Ever since I was a little girl, I've always loved bubbles. When I was younger, I used to beg my parents to take me to the DuPage Children's Museum every day. But when I got there, I would kind of spend the entirety of my 2-hour visit in only one area of the museum. That area, predictably being the bubble room. But I wouldn't even explore within the bubble room. I would just stick to that one exhibit where you pull the rope and the hula hoop forms a bubble around you. Yeah, basically I kind of had a thing for bubbles. That is, until I realized I was living in one. You see, for the longest time, I had been completely unaware of the world around me, happily unaware of the world around me. Any news I heard about the outside world seemed muted and insignificant, given that it was occurring somewhere outside of my little bubble. As far as I was concerned, if it didn't happen in Naperville and it didn't directly affect me, it didn't really matter. But my mindset changed because of one horrifying day in Newton, Connecticut. December 14th, 2012, a man enters an elementary school and kills 20 children and 6 adults. The first time I heard the news, my stomach churned, and I felt numb for a few moments, my brain refusing to comprehend the disgusting event that had just taken place. But my family and I remained gathered around the television, forcing ourselves to watch as the camera panned towards a group of kids who were staring at their school, their safe place, in terror. And just like that, in the midst of a seemingly normal evening, my bubble popped. There I was, sitting in the comfort of my own home, surrounded by my loving family. The fireplace was burning lowly off to the side, and the faint sound of crackling wood and my dog's annoying squeaky toys resonated throughout the house. All of this occurring while people were experiencing the worst day of their lives. As the days following the shooting went on, the event remained in the news for a while, given its devastating gravity. However, sooner or later, bigger and newer stories began to take the place of Sandy Hook Elementary School, letting it slip away from our view once again. But as people around me continued on with their daily lives, I found myself constantly thinking about those families in Newton, those families who would have to go to sleep with an empty bed in the house, or who would have to cook one less meal, or who couldn't drive their kids to school anymore. People all around me continued on with their daily lives, happily oblivious just like I had been a few years ago. But I found myself stepping out of this bubble that had been sheltering me for so long. Of course, the omniscient membrane remained intact around our little town, but thankfully this time I was on the outside looking in. I felt the need to be informed and aware of what was happening in the world around me, and my opinions, which had seemed so meaningless and helpless before, became things I was passionate about. I realized that we're born into this bubble. We are completely oblivious to the world around us until we're forcefully pushed into it, until we're finally free and independent, like many of you will be at the end of this year. Until we can finally make our own decisions and eat our own food and read what we want and watch what we want and do what we want. But most of us only take advantage of this blissful freedom for a few years before we start searching for ways to return to our comfort zones, our little bubble, the bubble that raised us and created this illusion of a perfect world where nothing could ever hurt us. Of course, we have the people who are meant to guide us. Parents, teachers, neighbors, aunts, uncles, grandparents, coaches, role models, mentors. But they just kept our bubble strong, preventing any harmful news from reaching us. So I get it. I get that parents want to protect their kids, and everyone wants us to be safe and untouched from the cruel hand of reality. I get it. But with every freshly formed bubble, I can't help but think of a new set of questions about our chosen isolation. Why are we so afraid of others? And why do we prefer simplicity to complexity? Since when did hashtag third world problems become more well known to us than actual third world problems? And why is it that posting a selfie every Sunday takes priority over posting about current events? Do people even realize that there's a world outside our rows of painted mailboxes and coordinated Christmas decorations? And why do people return to their rows after they've experienced the world's messy, jagged lines? Are these bubbles even to keep us safe as the kids of the bubbles? Or are we just excuses? Do the bubbles serve as security for us, or do they serve as alternate universes where those who have been exposed to reality can pretend that the harshness of the real world is non-existent, as long as they're in this bubble? When a world is turning around us, and there are people who are grieving, and soldiers who are fighting, and victims who are hurting, and children who are starving, who are we to turn the other way? And with the world being more interconnected than ever before, why does it seem like our oblivion is expanding as well? Why don't people embrace the world in all its bittersweet glory? Do we even have the right to create these bubbles? And if we do, when are we going to stop? What if we just turn it into one giant cluster of bubbles? Are we stuck in these bubbles forever, or is it a choice? And why is it that as a young girl, I was drawn to an idea that now, frankly, terrifies me?